I wasn't exactly sure what the Detroit Lions were going to look to do in this draft. I know I had made it clear, and I know a lot of Lions fans agree with me, that the number one goal of the program had to be to improve that running game. You can talk about defense, you can talk about this, you can talk about that, but until you improve that running game and actually have a viable, legitimate running game, you're only going to get so far. You put too much pressure on Matthew Stafford, and it's why you struggle to beat good teams. It just makes you too one-dimensional, a little bit too predictable as an offensive unit, and you can put your defense in some really bad situations by having too many quick 3-and-outs because you always have to throw the ball because you can't move the ball consistently on the ground. So the number one goal of the program had to be to improve the running game. I don't think there's any question about that. And you could tell based off of this draft that clearly the Detroit Lions organization agreed. Their number one goal of the program was to improve the running game. That was priority A number one. They were going to invest early in this draft and make sure that they addressed their running game. You look at it, they ended up coming out of this draft with 2 interior linemen, 2 running backs. They feel like they've effectively addressed the running game. The question is, though, did they? And the simple answer is I don't know that they did. Frank Ragnow from Arkansas. It was interesting. Very, very late in the process, he goes from being a round 2 to 3 type of guy to all of a sudden draft Twitter's buzzing and the media's buzzing about how he's potentially going to be a first-round pick. I don't know quite where it came from, but it did come late in the process, maybe as they were catching up with what teams actually thought about Ragnow. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, don't you know that Ragnow ends up going pick 20 to the Lions. Who saw that coming? I know in my last final 2018 mock draft, I had him going 21 to the Bengals, but I didn't envision him going 20 to the Detroit Lions. That was a bit of a shock. Now, admittedly, Ragnow's a good player. He could potentially be a starter for you at center or either one of the guard positions. He's got some positional versatility. He's going to be a starter in this league, probably a decent one, and play a long time. Personally, I felt like there were better offensive linemen on the board. If you were trying to improve your running game, I want a potential mover of men like Will Hernandez. I could see maybe not going with an Isaiah Wynn, especially if you projected him more as a tackle. You've already got Taylor Decker at left tackle. But Will Hernandez was on the board. And honestly, if you were going to go interior, I think Billy Price is slightly better than Ragnow. Those were the guys that if you were going to address that position, I felt like you should have went there. And personally, I feel like it should have been Will Hernandez. In the grand scheme of things, it might not matter that much. But I had a higher grade on Hernandez, so I'm going to stick true to my board. So it feels like not so much that they reached there, but I don't know that they took the best player available in the group that they were considering. Then when you get to round 2, they trade up, not to get somebody like a Nick Chubb who's already off the board, not to get somebody like a Darius Geis, but to get somebody like a Kerryon Johnson from Auburn. And to me, there is a very wide pendulum in terms of what his prospects are at the NFL level. He could be a really, really damn good running back. Or he could have been a product of an Auburn system where they know how they can run the football really well and do it consistently. And he could end up being a dud because he's not fast enough. He's not quite big enough. It's kind of hard to determine what type of back he truly is. Me personally, I'm sorry. You didn't. If you wanted a back, you should have traded up even more maybe to try and get Chubb, or traded up more to get somebody like a Ronald Jones, or traded up and get somebody like Darius Geis. I feel like those are all better running backs than Kerryon Johnson. Personally, I felt like they reached on him by about a round. Maybe they felt like with Rashad Penny going 27 and then Nick Chubb going and Ronald Jones going, that Kerryon Johnson was probably going to be the best running back, next running back off the board, and maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But there was a little bit of a run there on running backs starting at pick 27 and going into early round 2. So they probably liked him and felt like they had to go up and get him. And ultimately, if it works out, it works out. But I personally would have been more of a fan of them taking a Nick Chubb or a Rashad Penny at pick 20. Yeah, we would have been talking about that's a little high, but it would have been the right position. That's kind of the way I look at it. So I wasn't that impressed with what they did in the first 2 rounds. I didn't feel like they got the best running back they possibly could have, and I didn't feel like they got the best interior lineman they possibly could have. Tracy Walker felt like a reach by a couple of rounds. I think he's a good player, maybe a future starter, maybe just a backup type of guy. But round 3, I don't know. I did like a little bit more what they did in rounds 4 and 5 to Sean Hand. I thought was a little bit underrated in this process coming out of Alabama. Played on a team with a lot of talent there, so he didn't always get the chance to fully shine. And I think his best football is potentially ahead of him. And Tyrell Crosby from Oregon. I was really surprised to see him fall to round 5. You're seeing a lot of round 2, maybe round 2 to 3 grades on him. And here he is in the middle of day number 3. Here's a guy that could potentially maybe play right tackle, or you're going to flip him on the inside of the line. I do feel like he could be a future starter in the NFL, and he represented a really good steal. And even Bawden makes some sense to me because you're possibly looking at playing him at fullback and maybe want to use more power running looks. You want another versatile back. Maybe you feel like Bawden could be that guy. So some of what the Lions did here made sense, and I agreed with some of the philosophy and the approach. I just don't know that the execution was that great, and I feel like they could have done better and gotten better with the picks that they made.